a breathtaking display of nature's power. Niagara Falls became America's very first state park in 1885, and ever since, its grandeur attracted generations of explorers and lovers.
People have always stood before its thunderous beauty, feeling small against its endless power, never imagining what might lie beneath. When AI technology finally looked deeper into the heart of Niagara, it uncovered something no one was ready for. What started as a simple search for knowledge became a journey into the darkest depths of nature's most breathtaking wonder. For hundreds of years now, Niagara Falls has been known for its natural beauty, flowing with water that crashes down and creates mists that catch sunlight and make breathtaking rainbows. Millions of people visit there every year, attracted by the sound of the rushing water and its reputation as a romantic place to see. But behind the breathtaking mist is a truly dark story. This massive current has been carving the earth and covering up the traces of its own violent history. But in 1969, humanity made the impossible happen. We uncovered the hidden secrets by shutting off the powerful American Falls for 6 months. What we found was rather unsettling. There at the bottom of the falls was a grim collection of human suffering and years of accumulated waste. However, the engineers of the 1960s were limited by the technology of their time and didn't have the means to fully grasp the severity of the problem. They only managed to scratch the surface. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers were able to stabilize the cliff's face with steel, cementing their work into the bedrock. But they left one crucial question unanswered. How long would the repair hold? Now, a new wave of geological science, driven by machine learning and advanced sensor fusion, has revisited the archives. This technology isn't searching for relics or hidden tunnels. Instead, it's examining the durability of those very steel bolts, monitoring every crack, vibration, and drop of water accumulated over 50 years. The outcome is a detailed digital map of stress, corrosion, and pressure. This is a secret the world was never meant to uncover. The 1969 event, the imperfect fix, and the unanswered questions. In 1969, the world watched in awe as something unimaginable was set into motion. To understand the impact of AI's later findings, we need to step back and look back into that moment the falls went silent. The operation was driven by fear that the huge pile of rock debris, called talus, at the base of the American Falls was not only ruining the Cascade's beauty, but also threatening the stability of the cliff above. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers faced an almost impossible task: stopping the river. The solution was the cofferdam, a temporary but powerful engineering feat that's still incredible to imagine. And so, for 3 days in June 1969, a massive logistical undertaking unfolded. The project required the movement of incredibly massive amounts of material into one of the world's fastest-moving rivers. Over 1,000 heavy-duty trucks worked non-stop, dumping more than 27,000 tons of rock, earth, and clay into the racing current to build the massive wall. Every single ton had to be precisely placed to withstand the relentless pressure of the Niagara River, which was being forced to change its path. The whole project was a defining moment for modern engineering, proving that humans could, at least temporarily, command one of the most powerful rivers on the continent. The effort required was a testament to the fact that when political will and technical skill align, even the most monumental forces of nature can be silenced for study. However, once they could stand on the dry riverbed and examine the colossal, chaotic pile of rock, the engineers' plan completely changed. Geologists realized that the talus wasn't just an ugly pile of rocks, but an integral, stabilizing feature of the gorge. The geologists determined that the massive pile of rock which was a result of centuries of erosion, was actually acting as a necessary counterweight and support for the softer, less stable rock layers higher up the cliff. This discovery forced the engineers to completely change their plans. They understood that taking away the talus, as they had first planned, would have sped up erosion on the softer shale rock underneath and probably caused unpredictable, huge rock falls in the future. Their plan to make the falls look aesthetically pleasing would have put their stability at serious risk. It was a huge eye-opener about how delicate and complex the long-term geological balance of the gorge really is. The most shocking truth discovered was the discovery of human remains among the submerged rock. The site became a tragic forensic scene, confirming the fall's grim reputation as a place for those seeking to end their lives. The remains of 2 individuals were recovered, alongside personal belongings, and debris were found nearby, highlighting the painful truth that this breathtaking natural wonder was also a resting place. The discovery quickly brought the fall's darker side into the spotlight, the part tourists rarely mention. Experts believe that even now, about 20 to 25 people each year lose their lives to self-harm in the Niagara Falls area, making it one of the most tragic places on the continent. The terrifying truth is that the great power of the water and the sheer volume of the cataract ensure that most victims are never recovered. Their bodies are simply swept away, becoming part of the gorge's permanent and well-hidden history. These 2 victims were discovered only because the entire river was temporarily shut off, pausing the powerful current that had hidden these tragedies. Over the years, many people who were careless or unlucky have been caught by its strong currents and lost to the water. Niagara Falls might be a stunning landmark, but it also holds a dark history. It was the site of a tragic massacre during the War of 1812, where many lives were lost in its waters, making it a place of awe and sorrow. The falls remind us of the beauty and cruelty of nature. The roar you hear isn't just running water, but a constant reminder of the lives that had ended here. Beyond the loss of human lives, the engineers also uncovered vast amounts of wrecked automobiles, twisted scrap metal, and the most visually stunning, an incredibly large number of coins. Thousands of coins lay scattered across the mud, small fragments of metal left behind by countless visitors over generations, each representing a forgotten wish tossed into the current. But these findings were only surface-level discoveries. The spectacle of draining the water was complete, but the real challenge and main problem had only just begun. Although the aim was to remove the talus, the engineers soon encountered a direct and unavoidable geological contradiction. During their assessment, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers made a shocking discovery that changed the course of the project and established the fall's future dependence on human intervention. The rest of the 7-month operation shifted focus to reinforcing the cliff's structure. To ensure long-term stability, crews undertook an enormous task, drilling thousands of holes and installing hundreds of heavy steel rock bolts and tension cables, some reaching depths of over 100 feet. These bolts and cables were designed to secure the cliff's face to the talus slope, effectively binding the rock layers to the stable foundation below. This impressive conservation engineering work was meant to stabilize the American Falls, protecting it from significant erosion in the future. It was a massive, expensive, and necessary fix, a 1969-level solution to a timeless geological problem. The 1969 dewatering project ended up not solving the aesthetic problem. The talus remains there to this day. But it did solve a far more crucial problem by identifying and fixing a long-term geological vulnerability. When the cofferdam was finally breached, restoring the magnificent flow of water, the falls looked the same, but they were now permanently protected by an immense, invisible human effort that had completely changed the cliff's destiny. But the fix wasn't perfect. The limitations of the 1960s technology meant the engineers had to rely on acoustic sounding and core samples, noisy, sparse data to determine where to place their bolts. They installed the steel deep into the rock, hoping it would hold. But they had no way to predict the long-term interaction between the fresh steel and the ceaseless corrosive power of the river. This leaves the main ticking crisis that remains today. How accurately did the 1960s technology locate all the flaws? And how long can those old, massive steel bolts, now submerged for over 5 decades, actually hold against the accelerating force of the Niagara River? Could AI have the answers to these questions? We now move away from the black and white records of 1969 and step into the realm of modern engineering physics. Back then, engineers had no choice but to leave the talus buttress in place and depend on a few steel bolts. Today, the question isn't what to do, but rather when the 1969 solution will eventually fail. To find that answer, we turn to artificial intelligence. But it's been said that the AI has already been used to analyze the fall's structural integrity, and what it discovered is something shocking and terrifying. It is said that this AI found a hidden geological fault line or a massive void beneath the talus slope that was supposedly missed by the 1969 team, which means that the American Falls has a deadline and would face a catastrophic collapse in some years to come. But this weakness is not an invention of AI. It's a known, documented natural process: undercutting and caprock collapse. The work done on the falls was highly documented by the Army Corps during that crucial 1969 dewatering. Their well-detailed reports confirmed the existence of this caprock model, and more importantly, confirmed that the massive talus slope at the base was the only natural buttress preventing an immediate major collapse of the American side, which led them to take extra measures to ensure the stabilization of the cliff the best they could by installing steel bolts and anchors. But it was meant to be a temporary measure designed to buy time against this inevitable fate. So, if AI didn't uncover this secret, how did the International Joint Commission, this binational agency, come down to that conclusion? How do they know the falls are stable, and what does their technology really reveal? The International Joint Commission and the real role of AI. The International Joint Commission is the binational watchdog, the ultimate authority on the fall's stability and water flow. Their conclusion, that the falls are stable but facing a known, ongoing threat, wasn't pulled from a supercomputer. It was carefully developed over many years, using a network of technology that may not be as flashy as AI, but is far more dependable. And this technology is the often overlooked sensor array. The IJC's position is a consensus built from decades of data and scientific monitoring, managed by the International Niagara Board of Control. Their mandate includes continuous monitoring of the fall's crest line and collaboration with power entities for consistent data on water levels and flows. Their monitoring system is a testament to traditional engineering. The true guardians of the 1969 Corps' work are the piezometers, acting as the pressure detectives embedded deep within the rock to track water pressure. An unexpected rise in hydrostatic pressure could indicate water flowing into a new fracture in the softer shale layer, which is a critical early warning sign of the undercutting process accelerating. Working alongside them are the extensometers. These physical devices constantly measure the minute changes in distance across known rock cracks, tracking the rate of rock creep. These devices weren't simply dropped into place. Their installation was an exhaustive task. The corps of engineers had to drill hundreds of meters deep into the unstable dolomite and softer shale, carefully embedding steel, bolts, and sensitive instruments into the heart of the geological time bomb. The resulting data collection has historically been an almost entirely human endeavor. For decades, engineers and geologists meticulously logged readings, often by hand in damp, freezing conditions within hidden access tunnels. This has created an archive of paper reports, hand-drawn maps, and analog charts. A noisy, complex database filled with inconsistent formats and occasional gaps. This mountain of historical analog data is the priceless archive AI must first digitize, normalize, and validate. It is the absolute certainty of this hard-won, human-generated data that gives the modern geo-AI its indispensable foundation. And then we have the LiDAR and drone mapping systems, which provide visual evidence, capturing high-resolution 3D models. By comparing these scans year after year, geologists can precisely measure the slow, actual rate of erosion and pinpoint the exact location and size of any rockfalls.
These sensational pictures were taken by Movitone's cameramen at the world-famous Niagara Falls. The first appearance of these telltale cracks persuaded us to start a round-the-clock vigil.
AI didn't uncover this secret. The IJC built it on the absolute certainty of their own data. They acknowledge the natural process of erosion, but their data shows that human interventions have drastically changed the timeline. The documented erosion rate is now estimated at a slow 0.1 to 0.3 meters, which is 4 to 12 inches per year, a massive decrease from the historical average of 1 meter per year. Based on this consistent data and their understanding of the known geological mechanism, the dislodgement of rock blocks due to undercutting. The IJC and the geologists involved predict a long-term future where the falls will keep receding gradually, but they will still be around for tens of thousands of years, before eventually turning into a series of strong rapids, and the distinct waterfall would cease to exist. The overall process and future of the falls are predictable in their general progression, and the data has been used to effectively manage human interaction with the wonder. The real tension isn't about a hidden fault line. It's whether this detailed, non-AI sensor system can detect the known, occasional threat accurately enough to stop an unexpected rockfall. This challenge brings us straight to the major economic and environmental balance that shapes the future of the falls today. Now that we've established the truth, the falls are not threatened by a fictional secret, but by the scientifically inevitable caprock model collapse. The IJC's meticulous sensor data, all those pressure readings from the piezometers and the measurements of rock creep from the extensometers are reliable. But for years now, human engineers and geologists have faced the same overwhelming analytical wall. The data is too vast, too noisy, and too complex to predict the exact moment of failure. They know the collapse is coming, but they don't know when. This is the unsolved crisis that the AI's discovery is based on. The truth is, the human brain can't detect the tiny, nonlinear patterns in 50 years of sensor data that signals a tipping point, but artificial intelligence can. Its power lies in its ability to enhance and refine the existing scientific understanding, not replace it. The AI we are discussing isn't a sci-fi monster. It's a sophisticated machine learning model built for predictive maintenance and is used in real, proven situations like monitoring the condition of big old dams and assessing earthquake risks. At Niagara, AI won't create new problems, but will help fix the main issue of managing and understanding the data. Its mission would be to create a perfect digital twin of the American Falls. How would it do this? But it's actually quite simple. By performing data fusion on a scale the engineers of the 1960s could never comprehend. First, the AI consumes information from the past. It digitizes and structures every single piece of data the Corps of Engineers left behind. The hand-drawn geological maps, the original bolting diagrams, the noisy, incomplete seismic echo tests, and the decades of paper reports. This provides the AI with the initial state of the patient. Next, it integrates the present. The system is fed real-time, high-resolution data from modern technologies now aimed at the falls. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, scans that map the cliff face with millimeter precision, IoT, that is Internet of Things, sensors buried in the bedrock that tracks minute seismic vibrations and temperature shifts, and massive data sets from environmental monitoring. By blending this historical and real-time input, the AI performs time series forecasting. It analyzes how corrosion rates from water quality interact with stress loads from water flow to create a constantly updated model of the fall's structural integrity. It could finally create a precise collapse forecast for the known geological time bomb. The AI's power lies in its ability to find temporal and spatial patterns in these vast, complex, multi-source geological datasets. The tiny anomalies and micro-changes that are entirely invisible to human review. Now, what would be left is for the AI to deliver its astonishing insight. The steel reinforcement and the trade-off. The truth is, the real discovery the world is waiting for is not the existence of a secret structure, but the deployment of AI to finally deliver an accurate remaining useful life projection for the entire cliff face. The IJC's sensors carefully monitor the natural shifts in the bedrock, but the safety of the American Falls depends even more on the strength of steel structures that support it. In 1969, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers didn't just fix the cliff and leave. They also reinforced it by embedding huge steel cables, anchors, and tension bolts deep into the rock. This important step held the broken dolomite together, giving us valuable extra time to fight against ongoing erosion. But this solution introduced a long-term engineering crisis. The engineers were left questioning, how long would the steel last? We know the caprock model predicts failure in tens of thousands of years, but the steel has a far shorter, far more terrifying deadline. The bolts are constantly exposed to the unique, corrosive environment of the Niagara Gorge. The ceaseless moisture, extreme temperature fluctuations, and mineral-rich river water. Corrosion is nonlinear, unpredictable, and often masked by the surrounding rock. If the steel anchors fail before the rock does, the consequence is the same: sudden, catastrophic collapse. This is the second great mystery the AI system is perfectly suited to solve. The concept of remaining useful life, RUL, is a high-stakes metric used in every major infrastructure project globally. It requires complex analysis of initial material strength against decades of environmental stress. The real, uncomfortable truth is that the IJC currently relies on limited data and the fact that the bolts were protected during installation to assume their integrity. The use of AI here isn't about uncovering some hidden geological mystery, but about providing a precise, data-driven estimate of how much longer the steel reinforcements will last before they need urgent attention. This engineering reality is a more immediate and frightening concern than any unknown fault or void. The technical challenges, like the steel's remaining useful life and the rock's unpredictability, are concrete facts. But what really shapes the future of the falls is the political and economic framework set by the 1950 Niagara Water Diversion Treaty. This treaty governs how water is managed and diverted, making it a key factor beyond just the engineering and geology. If you stand in front of Niagara Falls during the day, you can feel the raw, wild power of nature. But come back a few hours later, when the moon is shining and the lights are on, and you will see an incredible example of human engineering control. The stunning view at night is carefully managed and significantly reduced according to a strict schedule set by an international agreement. In fact, the mighty flow of the falls is controlled by a human-made contract. This manipulation is the direct result of the treaty. The two nations established a clear trade-off, ensuring the falls look spectacular for tourists, then diverting the rest to light up cities. The 1950 Niagara Water Diversion Treaty is not merely a political compromise. It is the cornerstone of a multi-billion-dollar economy. The treaty's mandated minimum flow of 100,000 cubic feet per second during the day is the volume required to sustain the iconic roar and magnificent spectacle millions of tourists expect. This sustained spectacle anchors a massive infrastructure of hotels, restaurants, and attractions on both sides of the border, providing thousands of jobs and generating immense tax revenue. Were this flow to be permanently reduced or temporarily halted due to an unpredicted structural failure, the financial consequences would be immediate and catastrophic. The AI's ability to fine-tune the flow is therefore not just an environmental optimization, it is a critical tool for ensuring economic stability, protecting the regional power grid, and safeguarding the financial viability of one of the world's most recognizable natural wonders. The treaty mandates that during the peak tourist season, specifically from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 in the evening, the minimum flow over the falls must be 100,000 cubic feet per second. This massive volume preserves the magnificent, iconic roar that millions expect. However, once that 10 o'clock deadline hits, the mandate shifts entirely. The flow is instantly cut by half, dropping to a minimum of only 50,000 cubic feet per second for the next 10 hours until 8 o'clock in the morning again. In the off-peak tourist season, this reduced flow the treaty represents a remarkable example of human creativity and compromise. Since 1950, this agreement between the US and Canada has managed the delicate balance of keeping enough water flowing over the falls to preserve their beauty for visitors, while also diverting large volumes for hydroelectric power generation on both sides. It's a complex and costly effort to maintain both natural wonder and energy needs. By managing erosion rates, they aim to extend the fall's natural lifespan for tens of thousands of years, all while addressing today's energy demands and tourism needs. The current water flow schedule, while meeting treaty requirements and balancing power generation with tourism appeal, actually imposes irregular stresses on the American Falls bedrock. The International Joint Commission acknowledges that this approach sacrifices long-term geological stability to meet immediate human needs, accepting the trade-off to provide essential electricity and support the tourism economy. The ultimate challenge that only a theoretical AI system can tackle is this. Using its optimization capabilities, AI could simulate millions of different flow patterns to answer a key question. Can we produce the same power output while reducing pressure spikes on the most fragile bedrock areas? The AI's algorithmic proposal, the ultimate demonstration of GeoAI's role, wouldn't require abandoning the treaty. Instead, it would propose minutes, time-specific tweaks to the diversion schedule. This adjustment, which would be imperceptible to the eye and negligible to total power output, could meaningfully smooth out high-frequency pressure spikes on the American Falls critical fissures. The real international trade-off is exposed here. The AI would provide the IJC with the data needed to evaluate whether their successful, managed system can achieve a new level of algorithmic sustainability. The real issue for the IJC isn't a sudden failure, which is often exaggerated. Instead, their main task is to see if they can fine-tune their already effective approach to extend the fall's lifespan even further, using cutting-edge predictive technologies like AI to guide smarter decisions. The world stunned by facts. We started with a startling headline claiming that AI had uncovered a hidden, terrifying secret beneath Niagara Falls. But as we traced that story, we discovered a reality far more fascinating than any sensational algorithm could create. The world shouldn't be stunned by a fictional discovery. Instead, they should be stunned by its complexity, the careful work behind it, and the undeniable reality that it tried to conceal. First is the already known threat. The falls are at risk of the scientifically proven caprock model, the process of undercutting and collapse. The real suspense is not if the overhanging caprock will eventually fall, but when. The IJC's silent heroes, the non-AI sensors, are tracking the symptoms of this geological illness every single minute. The falls are not an unmanaged disaster, but a successfully postponed destiny. Secondly, the engineering time bomb. The second major concern is metal fatigue and the remaining useful life, RUL, of the heavy steel anchors and bolts installed in 1969 is a ticking deadline. Think about it. That steel is constantly exposed to the brutal, corrosive chemistry of the Niagara Gorge. Corrosion is an unpredictable killer, and the steel has a far shorter countdown. If the steel fails first, the collapse will happen suddenly. The AI's ability to transform geological uncertainties into a precise understanding comes with a significant new political burden. If the system delivers a clear, evidence-backed, remaining useful life RUL deadline. For example, projecting steel anchor failure within the next decade, it eliminates the luxury of indefinite postponement. This shift from risk management to concrete timeline management creates an immediate international mandate. An operation of this scale, replacing or reinforcing massive, deeply embedded steel structures, would be incredibly disruptive and cost billions of dollars. The IJC and the respective governments would instantly face uncomfortable questions. Who bears the majority of the financial and logistical burden? How do two sovereign nations, bound by the 1950 treaty, schedule multi-year construction that would inevitably impact both tourism and hydroelectric power generation? The AI, in its power to provide certainty, forces a necessary but politically complex consensus, turning a long-term geological issue into an urgent, high-stakes political and fiscal negotiation. The balance necessary for change really highlights the challenge ahead. The IJC's work is remarkable, but the 1950 treaty's schedule does involve compromises. Using advanced algorithms to optimize this balance, we can keep on generating power and keeping beauty intact while reducing wear on the bedrock, is exactly where innovation and environmental care intersect. It's a promising path towards smarter, more sustainable management. So, what did AI really find at the bottom of Niagara Falls? Absolutely nothing. But the story of what AI could find, the precise timeline for the next collapse, and the ultimate prediction of the steel's failure is only just beginning. The future of Niagara Falls is indeed safeguarded through human creativity, international cooperation, and continuous sensor monitoring. The real breakthrough will come when the IJC harnesses GeoAI to transform geological uncertainties into precise understanding. That's a reality far more impressive than any legend. Do you think the AI should prioritize saving the falls long-term, even if it means generating less power today? Knowing the steel anchors have a terrifyingly short deadline, should they be the IJC's #1 focus, or the slower geological threat? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, click on the next video on your screen. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.